total disgrace. And I still don't have the words to accurately articulate how terrible things are because of racism, white supremacy. But I mean, I have examples. I can't really say it, but I have examples. I have anecdotes, I think, which convey what I think is totally unacceptable about everything involved around just everything about this should be totally unacceptable to us. But just the fact that, anyone, any non-white person anywhere in the world has to exist on a planet where they or their offspring, anyone that they care about, can't even get a good night's
Can anybody hear anything?
without being tormented.
Hear it. Wait, can someone not hear it? Because who can?
I can't hear anything at all.
I'm hearing just fine.
All right.
I'm also hearing just fine.
Good night's rest without being tormented because of the system of worldwide white terrorism. That is a total disgrace. And I know, as much as we want to say, I know, unfortunately, this should resonate with a lot of people out there listening who have had problems, difficulty getting a good night's rest because of white people, whether it's white people on your job, whether it's white people in general. You all should be able to relate.
To study the nature of the enemy and seek to defeat that enemy. Isn't it amazing that black men can go on these courts and on these football fields, playing these primordial games of men and the games that reflect the realities of life, and cannot play them in real life? And can only play them under the courtship and the management of white men. Create billions of dollars of wealth playing for pennies. $5 million a year is no money when you're creating $2 and $3 billion or more. Going into a ring, knocking another man's brains out for $20 million is no money when the match itself generates over $200 million to $300 million. And you got a bunch of jokers out there living vicariously through this battle. And so you've got a bunch of men who will take one name, bulls and so forth, and wear one uniform. And when they come off the court, you say, then, why don't we call ourselves African? I'm an individual. You see, all of a sudden we're individuals. We're not connected. We are interbred with all kinds of races and groups. And yet, this is how you make your money. This is how the thing works out. So there's a larger psychology there. So we get young black males who will attack other ethnic group males with their kids just for walking down the street. They'll attack each other. I was talking to a lady the other day, a mother the other day, about her son who is literally locked within his own neighborhood because if he crosses the street that way, the gang that belongs to that project will attack him. And if he goes the other way, that one will attack him. Territoriality. Territoriality. Turf, as they say. Isn't it interesting then that men and black men and young black boys can have this sense of territoriality, but when they become grown men, Arabs can walk into the neighborhood and take the money and take the women. Koreans walk into the neighborhood, take the women, take the money, impoverish their children. All other ethnic groups just walk in and freely take and win and rule over them. What happens to the sense of territoriality? But yet you go into these courts and you play into the midnight protecting territory. Someone must have psyched your mind out. you're not approaching these games correctly. The game you're playing is the game played on you. Let's understand that. Therefore, you must study the dynamics of power. And confront it for real, because it's the only thing that's going to keep you alive. There's no guarantee that you will be alive except that you fight to stay alive. We got some jokers out here who want to depend on Jesus. You know, just depend on the Lord. Then they want to tell you, we're all God's children. He loves us equally. My God. I wonder what the Indians think about that, huh? God loved me the same as he loved white folk, and I'm being decimated? As you mentioned the Tasmanians, yes, the Aboriginals on Australia, and God is supposed to love what? All of us equally? You better rethink that again. What kind of love is that? Reminds me again, you see, if you're going to read this Bible, you got to read it right. As we read in Exodus, God promises these people a land. Promises them the land, right? And what has got to happen? When they get to the border, he just doesn't say, step right up and step right in, you're home, does it? You got to do what? You got to take it. You got to fight for it. You got to exterminate the people who are already there. Come on, let's face it. That's what's going on there. You got to fight for it. I promised it to you, but you got to do what? You got to fight for it. You got to fight for it. Some of them went in there and got spooked out. I think he sent over 12 to spy and to surveil the land. 10 of them came back. We can't beat them. They're invincible. They're giants. They're this. You know, pretty much the way a lot of us look at white people today. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There were only 2 that said, we can beat them. Isn't it amazing? The land was promised, and yet they had doubt. God had to keep them in the wilderness another 40 years so that he could just destroy the doubters. Only those who said, we can win despite the overwhelming forces. We can win despite the fact that they look invincible, achieve the promised land. We got a lot of black men out here rolling in the highways and byways, overcome by addictions and various other things, because they've reached the conclusion that the white man is invincible, that the white man cannot be defeated. Perhaps we're at our exodus where these cowards are dying. And perhaps those who will be left will be those who have made up their minds that he can be defeated.
Tell them Jesus never existed and you're going to see. And I know this for a fact because my mom and my sister are just Jesus-loving fanatics.
How do they feel about your music?
My sister called me the Black KKK. I'm not lying. Wow. I love her, but she gone. She just gone. She said, "Why am I making this?" She said, "Why am I making this bullshit? I'm sounding like the Black KKK."
Wow. Wow.
But she also has a white boyfriend, and she goes to church with white people, and she works with white people, and she wears a lot of makeup, and she has a nice little perm, and she's, has to have a petite little figure.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow.
That's a trip. You see how revolutionary and effective you are when you try to talk to your own family members. It's crazy.
Wow. Wow. How does your mom feel?
My mom doesn't really. She's very old school. She doesn't really understand. I try to kind of spoon feed things to her. I think when a person gets a certain age, that it's a point of no return with the Christianity thing. That religion is a spell on black people, and I don't know what it is about them believing that a white man died for them and flew up into the clouds and all of this shit. but it weighs heavy on their mind. And if you come to them with it and tell them that he never existed, they're gonna like look at you like you satanic or what. You know, they've been programmed. My mama has to have her church fix every Sunday. She's one of those black women that have to run around the church and beat the tambourine and hoop and holler, and then when you go home, your bills are still there. You know, that's how she is.
Victims. Would it be accurate, mother and sister, they are victims of white supremacy?
Yes, they are. And the bad thing is that black people don't know it.
Alrighty. So those were all fellow victims of racism, prisoners of war, and I thought these were very interesting and constructive VGQs, and perhaps may inspire some folks to, or remind some folks of some experiences that may have happened to them, or just allow them some more information to communicate whatever we'd like to share today. And I'm gonna just go ahead and get us started with just this is from Area 8 sex. This is something I've been able to reflect on as I've studied the code and the nature of white people and the state of people like myself, black males. And I call it the code causes tragic arrangements, the relationships between black and white people. But when it enters the bedroom, I like to call that direct capture. A racist has literally captured a black person because the system at least allows us to not have to always, be in bed with a white person or be around them. We at least are given somewhat of a will to not have to be around white people. But when white people form these sexual relationships with non-white people, black people, that's when I see that as a direct capture. And I was directly captured in high school due to the system of racism and white supremacy. Because I was a black male at the time, still am, and I was homeless. I was 17 years old, and my home had recently burned down in a fire, so my victim unit had to move to an area of the world known as Palmdale, and we lived with some associates, and it was for me at the time I was already quite severely victimized, so I didn't mind sleeping on the floor and living off minimum rations. But the system had still programmed in me this just this thing where I was convinced in high school to date a white chick, and I was not attracted to this white chick at all. It's just that my first time hanging out with her, I was able to experience comfort, and comfort being like consistent cooked meals, comfort, and not sleeping on the floor and like having like a couch. So as I've reflected this far, I'm like, wow, I'm 17 and already dealing with what many black males deal with when they're much older than 17. It was just like, being homeless and having to, be given shelter and food by some white person, potentially a white female. So anyways, as I began this relationship with this, as I was directly captured by this white female, I was given a very confused look into just the lives of white people. And as I'm much less confused, I'm able to process what I witnessed. And the the father, Joel, he definitely had his white counterpart. She was definitely um, dominated. He had her totally under his control. She would do literally whatever he said, and it was like very tragic because her name was Kathleen, and I thought Kathleen was at the time a pretty nice white person, but in hindsight, I'm sure she's very much a racist. And one of the first things I can remember her telling me was when she was that when she was younger, when she first saw a black person, she said, "Look, mom, there's a chocolate man." So that's just one of the many instances of racism I'm able to process now. But I can recall the race father, Joel, him, whenever he would get upset, and I have to probably give more context that these people are what I believe some white people would consider so-called white trash because they lived in mobile homes. But even so-called white trash and the system of white supremacy has so much more comfort than I would say the average victim of racism. Case in point, where this story stems from. So he would get mad sometimes and would say, you guys are treating me like some nigger out on the street. And the first time I remember him saying that, I just thought it was funny because again, I'm a very confused victim and I'm also directly captured. So I get my mind is just, not thinking that what he said was that, serious, but I'm able to understand now, oh, wow, white people definitely understand that to be mistreated is to be a victim, is to be treated like a black person, and I'm sure that was that's something that is similarly said amongst white people. But the family, the white family, I was able to observe was very corrupt. They sold pain pills amongst themselves. Um, the one of the daughters was raped by an uncle, and they did nothing about it. It took many years for him to actually get put in prison for molesting his nieces. So the family showed to me that like white people don't care about children. There's no such thing as this love thing that is thrown around, and yeah, it's just allows me to just process just my interactions with that white female. And I do recall me ending things with her. Um, that was quite pleasant, but I didn't end things with her because of racism and white supremacy. I just ended things with her because um, I just wanted to. I was living in comfort now, so I didn't need her anymore. So, but yeah, the system victimizes us to the point where we need white people, and the rations that the white people fed me there was always food in it. I don't know if she was deliberately putting food in there, or her hair was constantly falling out, Kathleen's hair. But there was always hair in my food. But the food was it tasted good. It was definitely a delicious poison for the time, and that was also my first introduction to spam. I never ate any of it, but they were eating spam like it was normal. Another indication that white people and non-white people seem to be just programmed and potentially built different. Um, yeah, I hope I was able to just communicate that direct capture story. the portion from the audio where she mentions her sister marrying a white person is a good example to what could have happened. I mean, and somewhere deep down inside, my brain computer knew that being with this white female was incorrect, because I would think, dang, if I ever get her pregnant and she doesn't want to abort the baby, I'm gonna have to eliminate her, and whatever is inside her. And I feel no shame or guilt from saying this, because this is an insane thinking and insanity that the system produces. So thank the creator that no offspring was produced. But for many victims of racism, that is not the case. And I mute my line and just allow whoever else wants to share whatever they want or comment on what was shown, what I shared. Feel free.
The hair and the food reminded me of Midsommar, that movie where I don't know if anyone's seen it, where the white female is putting her pubic hair in the food. It's not funny, but that's what that reminded me of. Definitely tragic. Definitely learning that white people are very much aware of racism. No matter how often they want to feign, they didn't know, they were ignorant. They definitely know that Black people are being mistreated. And I also thought it was interesting, having said that you, at that moment in time, you didn't have a home, your house burnt down, and then the white male also saying, you're treating me like a nigger in the streets, like that is clearly an act of racism, but definitely was not trying to be subtle, I would have to say.
Quaku, and you putting it that way, he wasn't referring to me, but I was so confused and brain trapped at the time that I didn't know that I was a nigger in the street, and in many ways still am. But that is just how powerful the system is. We could have such blatant acts of racism right in front of us, and just not even know truly what we're looking at, because it was somewhat comedy. I don't think me and the person who was victimizing me, my white captive, I don't think we had a conversation about it. And I definitely am reminded by the breakup, one of the breakups, um, where I had managed to end it. She started. She would cry, right? And then I would get information that she's been crying, like she's just always crying on the bathroom floor and stuff like that. I was trying to I guess get pity, and that should have been my little introduction to white tears. But again, as a confused victim, you just everything is it just goes over your brain computer for sure. Thanks for chiming in, Mr. Kwaku. And again, you don't have to comment on what I said. You could just share whatever you like.
I have a story that I wanted to share. That my brother had told me and my sister and his wife a couple of weeks ago. I think he was with his friend and they were at a 7-Eleven, and he said they were getting stuff, and when they got in the car, it was a white lady by like the ice cream side of 7-Eleven, and she literally got what she wanted from the ice cream place, and then she squat down and she started peeing and it was like she was peeing, but she was on her menstrual at the same time. So she was just right there peeing and then kind of like walked off. And my brother um, screamed, but he screamed with like a laughter. But it was just to me how, you know, white women, they do it best as far as how they pertain themselves and keep themselves going under this system, kind of just unflawed of how they carry themselves.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Johnson. They white women definitely fly under the radar, and I definitely appreciate almost Dr. Amos and Wilson's words from the audio, but he does mention, he does say white man and not white man and white woman, um, which is definitely, I think, an oversight, because the many acts by the racist female is just go on the radar, and this is why the system is so powerful, because many people seem to only think it's the male, and I hear white male supremacy more often than I hear just the system of white supremacy. So yeah, as is commonly known, and some circles, some very tiny circles of kind of racism, white women do it best. Anyone else like to share?
Your your stories there sort of brought back some memories from a long time ago. When I was in high school, to my parents, we were, you know, originally from the area of the world known as New York City, because, you know, 80s, late 80s, the crack epidemic and so on, the city got very bad. We relocated to Southern California, but kind of what would be called like almost like a hick town. I mean, so when you the name, like when you call them, when you characterize this girl and her family as white trash, that's kind of the town that I you know, it was like it was California, but it resembled something more like Middle America. In any case, lots of experiences in that town, going to high school there. When you mentioned this, the father, you know, sort of the you know, the go-to description of someone being, you know, mistreated or something, with a nigger treating me like a nigger in the street. I remember having classmates, associates, white people, white young men that I knew. I mean, nigger was like, you know, like if someone was doing something annoying, stop, you nigger. You know, just back and forth to each other. It was just the go-to word for something, you know, bad, you know, so to be sort of derogatory or pejorative to someone. Nigger was the go-to word. Which I guess I also didn't see the full significance of that then. But, you know, now this is just, they're just constantly reminding themselves, reinforcing, you know, the concepts, you know, of this hierarchy. That was significant. There was also, there were just a handful of us, of Black people in this town, and to a certain extent, we kind of stuck together. You know, I don't know, for comfort, for protection, but being I was from New York City. The people who were the black people who were sort of from this town, really victimized, having no consciousness. I mean, I'm talking, you know, the late 80s, early 90s. This is like the Public Enemy era and so on and so forth. But they were just really had no concept. I mean, I remember in the town, no one in this town, there were no such thing as a Black couple. In our high school, we maybe had 30 Black students out of 2,000 or more students, no Black couples. Every Black person, every black young person in that school, they would be dating someone non-black, white, Mexican, definitely someone non-black. And I remember even talking with one of my classmates, and I think somehow the concept, the conversation turned to perhaps marrying a white girl, and he said, "Yeah, sure, I'd marry a white girl, but only for the kids." And only for the kids? What do you mean only for the kids? And he said, no, just so so the kids come out, so they don't have that hair and this, that, and so on and so forth. And I wound up becoming friends with one or two of the few black people who are not from that town, people who are from other parts of the state of the United States, and maybe a little less victimized. And we were just amazed at someone saying things like this, and many other things that I've just heard, just the self-hate being in that town. And I remember there was there was just no options for dating. And I had one relationship with a tragic arrangement with a white girl in that town. This girl, I was new to the town, and I got caught very early on. What I had found out later, what I came to know later, is that this girl, she targeted the black males in the school. She was sort of predatory with it. I know a few black males who tried to avoid her, but she would find ways to basically make sure she slept with every black male that attended that school, and go out of her way to make it happen, and pursue them. I didn't know. I was victimized at the time, and then also I was new to the area, so I didn't really know sort of her, her reputation or her standing or what her history. But during the time that I was involved with her, hearing her story, she had two sisters, a mother, and a stepfather. And apparently, her stepfather had been molesting her for many years. It had been found out, and I think the whole family was in therapy then. I mean, at the time we were maybe 14 or 15. So at what age because this was already like a past problem that they'd been going to therapy for. So I don't know what age it must have been. But anyway, so that had happened. Now this stepfather, this also was not his first marriage. His first wife left. He caught his first wife cheating with a black man. So and then wound up leaving the first wife, now getting with the second wife, who was the mother of this girl, and then wound up molesting this daughter, who then I got involved in a tragic arrangement with. And then this daughter, I'm thinking as a reaction, maybe as a way to get back at her stepfather, is going out and being purposely incredibly promiscuous with all the black males in the school. And I don't know, these are just some of the things that I don't know if this is all coherent or if it's making sense, but this is just some of the memories that your story sort of stirred up in me. So this is just some of the craziness and the confusion, I think, that's going on in white society, because they're doing injustice amongst themselves. They mistreat each other to ways that I think we can't even imagine, some of the things that go on in their society and amongst themselves. They keep a lid on it. Ours, they broadcast on the news. Anyway, so this is just some of the stuff that I've, I guess, been privileged to see of what goes on in their society and what goes on with them. So thank you. I'll mute my line.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. What you said about the white female just hunting out on the hunt to sexually capture black males reminds me of being my one of my first time amongst the white people, and I think the code does say to mention the names of the races, and it's crazy that I remember this name from back in 7th grade. Ariel. I don't know. I can't recall the steps that led to it, but I do believe she was a white female, and I do believe she was known around the school to be some sort of like a I don't want to say whore, but just as the type of white female you mentioned, she hunted black males. But it didn't stop me, my seventh grade self, from making out with her. I guess I don't remember if it's the first date or whatever. But yeah, it's just and I'm also reminded of being sexually captured and my time in area of the world known as Berkeley, and the sex definitely didn't feel like. In hindsight, I understand the sex as not sex, but as in she's attempting to take something from me, and she also, this was another white female who fits that behavior pattern of having like a large catalog of black males that she has captured, and yeah, just super like highly refined and highly deceptive because I was definitely still confused, but if something like happened that was overtly racist, like a black male, black female being shot, and I was vocal about it, it would definitely cause conflict. But I didn't think it was like anything like you know that deep. But then again, this is how brain trash I used to be, and this is how perhaps brain trash white females purposely attempt to make the black people they associate themselves with. Um, really, really tragic, really, really interesting, and yeah, I'm sure there's probably millions of white females who fit this behavior pattern. Any more folks who like to share? And also area 2 education, I do believe like what they call these schools are nothing more than like playgrounds or hunting grounds for white people to just have their fun with the victims in their proximity, because that's definitely how I see the institution name known as Berkeley, Berkeley College, University of Berkeley. I see that as a playground where the white people have close proximity to highly confused victims, and they just have their fun. Here, give them psychedelics, give them all sorts of ecstasy, MDMA, and then just have a ball with them. And when I say ball, I mean sexually conquer them and mistreat them in various ways without them having a clue. Um, Anywho, any folks like to share um, just vile realities from the system of white supremacy?
Hello, can I be heard?
You can't be.
Hi, this is Helen B. Um, every once in a while, this term micro, micro racism comes out. Microaggression, that's the term. Microaggression comes out. And from the movie theater, I saw that white woman that half of her dress or long skirt was hanging outside of the car, outside the car. She's on the passenger side. So as I'm walking up to the car, I'm making the gesture. I'm pointing down, like look down, look down. I was going up to the car to not maybe knock on the window or whatever. But as I got like maybe 2 inches away from the car, she takes her hand and locks the door. And mind you, this happened early 2000. So I was just like, oh, what was that about? She never really looked at me, and she saw me clearly out of her peripheral. So, okay, I'll go about my day or whatever. And some people would call that a microaggression, micro racism or whatever. And I'm like, no, see, that's something that happened to me early 2000, and it's still stuck with me. It's still with me. Micro meaning small, and there's nothing small about racism. I mute my line.
Thank you, Ms. B. Again, why education, these so-called schools, are just nothing more than playgrounds for white people to mistreat. Because I didn't hear that term microaggression until I got to higher education. And then I discovered, that microaggression just means racism. But still, I didn't connect the dots that they're changing the language. They're furthering my retardation and my sabotage by making racism, direct aggression, direct acts of racial aggression, direct acts of white supremacy. They have now minimized it to mean and euphanized it to mean microaggression. And so the power of words, very, very important. This is why I appreciate counter racist code so much, because it just teaches us and encourages us to actually pay attention to the words people use and to ask questions about the words people use. Something, unfortunately, my victim parent didn't teach me how to do, and I'd be surprised if many do. Any other folks like to share?
Yeah, can I be heard?
Yes, you may.
Can you be? Yeah, I've found the same kind of thing with that term microaggression as well, actually, and these other sort of terms, the unconscious biases and intersectionality. I always find when people use the intersectionality thing, they're actually really, well, I mean, non-white people can usually just replace that word with parity, where usually suspected white supremacists are trying to gain some sort of parity, whether it's sort of when they talk about intersectionality, they say stuff like, in relation to, say, the LGBTQ community, or I don't know, feminist politics, etc. They try to gain some sort of parity in relation to being a victim of a whole system of racism, white supremacy. So yeah, these new words, I find it really confusing, and I find it confuses a lot of non-white people that I know personally as well.
Yeah, I would say a high degree of confusion, because they will not have the awareness that they are confused, because, giving myself as as an example, when I was introduced to the he, like to the pronouns, introduced to the term microaggression, my brain computer just absorbed it. It just became part of, like, okay, all right, this is just, I don't feel confused. I feel like this is just information and it makes sense on my brain computer. So it's just many of us don't even have a clue that we are confused, which is just one of the infinite dangers of being confused and living in a system of white supremacy, which directly, intentionally produces many messages that are just lies, and causes confusion. And I think that's a great example of, like, the genius of white supremacy, to just refine white supremacy in so many ways, always refining. I think Helen mentioned that she heard about this term in like 2003, and I didn't hear about it until like 2016. So it's like, if it ain't fixed, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Mentality, and a tragic example. Perhaps they don't have to refine that much, because the old tricks are definitely still working, unfortunately. Any other folks like to share?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna. Oh, dang it! I can't. Can I be heard?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
I thought my mic wasn't working. But one thing I was gonna say is that white woman fever. That's pretty powerful to remember a name from like 2 decades ago. So that's like a symptom you definitely might want to get like checked out. But one thing I would say in regards to like them those clips at the beginning, it's interesting that victims can even function with all this stuff going on all the time. You really don't get a break. You got to work full time. You might be a full-time student. You might be a full-time victim in pain from, some sort of physical ailment. And then you got full-time victims outside just popping fireworks and stuff in the middle of August and stuff. Just the fact that you can even function is like a miracle. So that's what I got.
Agreed. And pulling from the clips again, the almost and Wilson clip when him mentioning the gangs and the territory. That was definitely my experiences. Many of those walking somewhere and then out of nowhere, just experiencing such a vile hostility from a fellow prisoner of war because I was wearing the color red. It's always the color red, um, which I definitely internalized. I have never liked the color red because I've been banged on so many times by people who call themselves Bloods, and yeah, I've always had just a really tragic relationship with what white people have created, what they call gang culture. Uh, what you said that reminds me of another story of the 50 Cent's first album. The day that album came out, me and a associate, we were walking my girlfriend home at the time. I was in sixth grade, and my girlfriend, she was in seventh grade, and she was non-white, black, or Belizean. I don't know, whatever Belizean is. And and then when we got to her block, she literally tells me and my associate that okay, we should leave because it's not safe over here. And I'm thinking it can't be that dangerous, you know. But literally the moment she turns the corner, someone started shooting, and the bullets started whizzing, and I run and I like find cover very fast, and my associate he attempts to do the same, but he falls down, and luckily he's not hit. But the experience is very terrifying. Like we were trembling to the core, heart racing. It was a very terrifying experience. And on my way home, I see my victim mother, more of my victim unit in her car, and she rolls down her window and she hands me the 50 Cent album, with his first album. It may have been called Get Rich or Die Trying. I may be incorrect, but she hands me that album. Then I go home and listen to it, and I think, oh, this is a good album. But just that whole tragic and tacky and terroristic experience, you know, just for something like that can happen, we have to be living in a system of white supremacy. It's just so ironic. And the amount of times I've had to I can recall just being in a moment of like, you know, everything's fine, and then all of a sudden chaos, and I'm running from bullets or race soldiers busting down my doors. All I could count all of those times, and I do think that has severely. I do think that it has definitely victimized me, traumatized me in many ways. One example that I feel that I will share is the experience of race soldiers kicking down your door, and that light flashing on you attached to that assault rifle. That is something that I'm sure many victims in the area of the world known as Middle East can experience, and definitely an example, my own personal example, that I'm literally in a war. Anywho, that imagery and that experience of the loud banging of the kicking of the door and the door flashing open and that light, that blinding light attached to that death weapon, that etched in my 13-year-old mind for a very long time. And it wasn't until about, I would say, maybe 3-4 years later, to where I developed a sensitivity to loud sounds and to like bright lights, like to the point where like I would hear like a loud bang similar to the knocking of a race soldier, or I would see like a a light similar to a light attached to a assault rifle, and my body would experience just extreme discomfort. And it wasn't until I understood trauma and how a body can process certain things until I realized that, wow, I'm kind of messed up here. So I went to therapy and stuff like that. But I'm reminded, this is why we're here, to share these war stories, because we're all veterans here. According to counter-racist science, counter-racist code, we are veterans in the war white people are waging against non-white people. Reminded that the body keeps the score, and how that doctor, who is very, very smart, he recommends that, and he has shared his studies and his experiences with working with soldiers who experience constructive results when just talking about their war experiences and just being amongst fellow veterans and sharing conversations. So that's what we're doing here. But yeah, that the trauma, the the race soldier trauma, the gang trauma, it's very real. And it should have been a wake-up call a long time ago that I was in some sort of war, but it wasn't. It wasn't until I received the right combination of words that I was able to realize, holy, and begin to think and wonder, okay, why are things really happening? Why are white people, or why have white people ate black people in the past? And then I began to get serious and began to really think about my life, not just being full of trauma, but what is the root of all this trauma? What has caused all of this trauma I've seen, experienced? And the answer is definitely the system of white supremacy. And that's what I've always wanted. I've always wanted to understand why my life and so many people like me who look like me just seem to be destined for misery, for suffering. And I guess it's easier for me to see that, black people something's off with us, because I come from a concentration camp where there's not that much comfort in South Central. Whereas I've noticed that the more comfort a victim has, the less they're aware, or the less they care to be aware about the war we're in. But even I wasn't aware of the war until much later in my existence. So again, I shall mute my line. I'm sure I'll have an infinite amount of stories to tell about the many incorrect things we've had to endure under the system. But I'll see if other folks like to chime in.
As I was growing up, the word racism, white supremacy, the word racism was never used. And I was told this story quite often from my attempted uncle. When he was a teenager, he attempted to go to a party, like young people do. I think he was like 15, 16 years old. And he went with a whole bunch of people from the area, all non-white males. And they go to Brooklyn. They go to the white part of Brooklyn called Canarsie. The young lady who was having the party, I think one of her parents was white. She looked more like the Mariah Carey type complexion. And so they all go, and there's quite a few of them. It's over 10 of them. And they're all going, and they think that they're going to this party. They get there and didn't realize, didn't know that there was a bunch of white people on the block. The white guys, teenagers on the block, see a group of non-white black males walking down the street. And they're like, hey, what are you doing there? What are you doing here? Like, start harassing them. They're yelling stuff. And next thing you know, they're throwing stuff. Before he even gets to the building, like, they're coming out with bats. So now he's running for his life. And I could have lost my uncle that day, my attempted uncle. And luckily, he was able to run and get away and run down to the train station and jump on a train as it was pulling up. But a few of his friends, they were hurt. They were harmed that day. And so I'm being told the story, but the word racism is never used. And I'm like, that was such valuable information. If they'd only used the term racism, that would have helped, help with my understanding. But I didn't understand. I was a kid. So I was just like, wow, uncle, that was dangerous. And even when he told the story into his 20s and 30s, you could see the fear. Like he was reliving that moment. That's another reason why I do not use the term microaggression. But yeah, you could just see the fear in his face, and he was just reliving that trauma. I mute my line.
I'm sure that is consistent because I definitely did not hear the word racism growing up. Most certainly not the term, the system of racism, white supremacy, and it's very tragic because I would hear things like, my grandfather would never let me bring home a white female. That's something that my victim mother would say to me. Yeah, your grandfather would not let you bring home no white woman. And I never thought, oh, I wonder why. It was just something that my victim mother would just say. She would never say nothing beyond that. I remember much later in my existence, my victim mother shared a story with me that my grandfather had eliminated a white person who allegedly like harmed him or called him some things he didn't like. He didn't appreciate being called, so he eliminated him. And my victim unit fled from Louisiana to California. So this is stuff that if I had probably been told when I was earlier, I could have maybe at least asked questions. Like why would something like that happen? But yeah, I would say most victim units, victim attempted parents just completely fail in preparing us for the system, preparing the offspring for the prison cells, the prison planet they were born in, which is why, yeah, it's
Oh, yeah, I have some stuff I would add. What you said, '05 about comfort you're allowed to have. Don't forget that. They can take it away at any time they want. As far as Black parents not teaching offspring, Black people have what I like to call an impala mentality. I don't know if you've ever seen National Geographic, but if you see the impalas, how they go to the lake or the river, and they drink the water, and they know that the alligator's in the water, and they continue drinking until it comes up and snatches one of them in. Then they all run away, and then they come back like a few minutes later and continue drinking, like the previous impala never got ate. That's pretty much like a summary of Black people.
I was gonna say, hello.
Go ahead, Mr. Damages.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say the amount of times that I've been stopped and searched by police over here is, I mean, I've given up counting actually. The amount of times I've been stopped and searched by police, obviously simply because I'm a Black person, because I'm a Black man. And yeah, just yeah, and usually when they stop you, it's the same type of excuse as there's been a crime in the area and blah 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 blah. We need to search you for drugs or weapons, etc. And yeah, there's so many stories like that. I wouldn't even know where to begin. The amount of times that's happened. Being followed around in shops happened to me just yesterday as well. Same old type of thing. Sometimes I record it when the security guards are following me around in shops right now as well. Sometimes I do record it. I might have to share that. I might have to share a couple of them. But I was going to say, in terms of one, I'd say like an incident years ago when I was let me see how old I was now, probably about 18, when I was in college in a place called Barking, in London over here. I'm from Hackney. It's there's quite a lot of black people in Hackney, but back at that time in say around 1990 or 91, there weren't that many black people in this place called Barking. It's quite Barking, Essex, basically, and it's yeah, but basically we were on the way to college that time. We were doing I think we were doing technical illustration at that time in this place called Barking College Technical Illustration. And me and about three of my mates at that time, on the way down there, we're walking through. Right, even thinking back right now, man, it just puts me right back in that situation. And there's a group of white adult men got out the car, and they had like they had chains, they had like broken snooker cues, they had knives and that. I mean, we had to. There was two of us that got injured as well by them as well, and we kind of tried to fight them off as best as we could, but you know, we just had, the rest of us had to kind of just run for our lives really. The police were called, our parents were called down as well, and nothing was really done about it. And yeah, nothing was really done about it. I can remember the police's attitude at that time, where even though in view of like what had actually happened, they were really just, their attitude towards it was, oh, you know, it's just people from the local area, they're really, really bad. And but they weren't really actually talking about racism at that time. So yeah, the word, I think like when I was growing up, there was the term racist or racism was sometimes used around me, but no actual real explanation as to what racism actually was. So I didn't really actually have that much of a vocabulary at that time to really articulate what I thought racism was. And yeah, there's lots of horror stories, war stories in terms of being victim of racism, white supremacy. I could, yeah, but yeah, I'll let other people share.
Wow. That is very terroristic, because they say you're supposed to call the so-called law enforcement for help, but in that very terroristic case, they definitely weren't help. But I'm sure if you are not a prisoner of war, I'm sure that wouldn't have been the case. I remember in high school, I went to high school, Palisades Charter High School in the Pacific Palisades, amongst white people, and me and some associates, all white, I believe, all white. One of them may have been Persian, but I think that even made me white in the context of the story. But anyways, we go and we're supposed to shoot airsoft guns on this like area where there's like bush, like a bunch of bushes, and it's like overseeing the freeway. Long story short, someone had reported to law enforcement that people were shooting at the freeway. So they sent out a helicopter, and then eventually there's like a army of cops are just lining up on the block. And at first we didn't connect that they were here for us, but an associate had left, a white person had left to get something, and he was taking a very, very long time to come back. And then we realized, we went to go check it out, and we realized that they had the white person detained. They were questioning him. And then out of all the people to get handcuffs, I was the only person in handcuffs as we were driven back to the white person's home. And the race soldiers, well, not race soldiers, because they were what I think will be called Mexican, or some type of person like that, Latino, whatever that is. I think they may have been classified as that, but they were the ones who handcuffed me, which was one of my first um, interactions with the system that should have taught me that Black people have no friends. You know, like not even Black people have friends that are other Black people. We really just are prisoners of war, and prisoners of war really. I don't know if they can't. We don't have friends. So that was my introduction, and I have another really vile story that I'm gonna share. Because it's just information that needs to be out there. And Black people have no friends. Everyone has been programmed and designed to despise and want to harm, hate Black people because the system is very real. So this takes place back when I was like probably seven, and I was on my way to the store to get some cereal or either some milk. But I was going to a place called Family Farms. I know Miss Johnson knows about Family Farms because we grew up in the same concentration camp, the same area. And so I was on my way there, and I go, and the automatic door doesn't open. So I see like the security guard there. He has a gun. I don't know if he's a security guard or a cop who does security there. I don't know what was his official title, but he was armed, and he was just ignoring me. I kept trying to get him to tell me, "Yo, when is it open?" And he kept like shooing me away, You know, so I flick him off. And then I leave. I turn and I'm walking away. You know, but he comes out of the door screaming, and he says, "You nigger monkey, you nigger monkey, I'll fucking kill you. I'll jab my nightstick up your ass, you fucking nigger." And he just kept calling me a nigger monkey. And I never told my victim mother about this experience because she probably would have had some harm done to him or something like that. But that's not why I never told her. I just never told her because I just never thought to. It's something that happened to me. Like I'm like, this is an interesting combination of words that this grown person, this grown Mexican, grown Latino, grown Hispanic, whatever that classification is. This is a really interesting combination of words. But as I recount the experience in the story, it's definitely an indication that everyone has been trained to just have this a tremendous amount of anti-blackness, disdain towards Black people, and it's very incorrect and vile combination of words for a child as myself was to have to hear. But I'm sure this is common. I'm sure this is very, very, very common. And wow, telling this story reminds me of another story of that basically means Black people have no friends. But I will share it in a moment. For now, I'll see what other folks like to share or comment.
Hello. I like to share my conditioning. I didn't realize how deep this went, how much racism affected me, right? So I'm a kid, early teens, 12, 13 years old, 12, 13, 14. And when I would walk into a store and even into my 20s, I can't, but that's when I noticed it when I was a child. So this went into my 20s and 30s. So I would go inside the store and let's say I'm looking for something. I can't find it. It's not there. It's not on the shelf. It could have been my last bit of money. I'm going to walk out of that store with something. I'm buying it, mind you. I'm going to buy anything because I want to prove to the store, because I used to get followed around, right? So I want to prove to the store, to white people, that I'm not in there to steal. So even though they don't have the item that I'm looking for, I'm going to purchase something anyway, just to show you I have money. See, I mean, and it could have been my last, and my very and I'm still going to buy something. I don't care if it's a little 99-cent nail polish or whatever, right? And I'm like, and it took me a very long, once I caught on that I was doing this, it took me a very long time to break that habit. And that's sad. That is pathetic. That is disgusting. But I must admit, it took me a very long time to break that habit. Um, Something else I would like to share along the same lines of my conditioning. I live in an area that I'm allowed to live in an area that has very popular, famous Black churches, right? And white people come to this area to go to the church just to hear the singing and stuff like that. And when they would come to the area, they wouldn't know it. So they would ask for directions. Of course, they're asking the Black people, right? And I used to help them. What I was more than help. I could hear them talking to somebody else asking for that. No, I know what that's at. Let me help you. So I would help them. And even before I started learning about racism, I was trying to deprogram myself. And I used to wear headphones. So whenever they would ask me questions, I didn't do it just solely for that reason, but it helped. So whenever they would ask me questions, I would point at the headphones, like, look, I got headphones on. I can't answer you. I can't, huh? What? I can't hear you. I got headphones on. Keep walking. Then I got to the point, um, listening to the cows. I forgot who said it, but I got to the point where I would witness a white person asking a Black person for directions to a Black church, and I would yell to the white person, not the Black person. I'm talking to the white person. I would yell, I hope you're paying him. I hope you're paying her. Right? I'm talking to the white person, mind you, and yeah, so that's how crazy I was. But that's something that I used to do. And I just wanted to share my conditioning. Mute my line.
Thank you, Miss B, for sharing. I'm sure that is something that a lot of victims do, that proving things to white people is very, very much something embedded in our brain computers from the womb, I suspect. So thanks for sharing.
Can I be heard? Oh, excuse me. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Who was that? Okay, yeah. So real quick, I just wanted to say that you when I earlier today when we were looking in the WhatsApp and we were talking about They Live, and someone posted that long fight scene with over the sunglasses. If anybody, I don't know if anybody has, well, I know some of you have seen the movie, but I look at the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept as those sunglasses. Like when in the movie, they put on the sunglasses and they're able to see past all of the deception. And one of the things that's helped me be less confused is using the part of the code that says there's three types of people in the known universe: white people, non-white people, and the racist white supremacists. And so I keep that in mind whenever I'm dealing with what the system tells us are Asians and Hispanics or Latinos or whatever. I keep that in mind and try to determine if the individual that I'm interacting with is a white person or not by just asking them the critical question, which is, are you a white person? Oftentimes in my interaction with people, if I'm spending a lot of time with them, especially after this never happened before I started practicing the code, but after I started practicing the code, whenever I spend time with someone who is obviously they're not Black, they're not a dark-skinned person, they eventually tell me that they're a white person. But I just thought that would, that may help some of us be less confused if we constantly try to think in those terms whenever we're having this interaction with people. And then lastly, on my channel, I did last week the census, the census posted they posted the results of the 2020 census, and they stated that for the first time in the United States, the population of, and these are the words that they said, I'm quoting, non-Hispanic white people shrank. So they just looking over that and then looking at the, I decided to go to the census report. This was a Wall Street Journal article that stated this, but then I decided to go directly to the census report and look at the questions that they were asking individuals. And so in those questions, this is that was one of the things that they were asking. Are you Hispanic or Latino? And then you know, if you check yes, then it would say, the next box would say, are you white? Or it didn't say non-white. I think it said, I can't remember the other options that it gave, but they definitely wanted to know if people were white and Hispanic or white and Latino. And then there's someone that I grew up with who clearly used to tell me he was a non-white person. He was, you know, so-called Hispanic. He never liked the term. I mean, he don't care using the term now, but when we were growing up, he didn't like the term Latino or Hispanic. He thought those were racist terms. But he used to say that he was a non-white person. And then about 10 years ago, him and I was having a conversation and he told me he was a white person. And if you go back to the code where it says what a white person is, the code says a white person is a person who classifies themselves as white and is accepted as white by other people who classifies themselves as white. So it looks like to me that some people who are, you know, so-called Hispanic or Latino can now say that they're white because non-Hispanic white people are accepting them as white. If that, I'm hoping that can help us lessen some of the confusion, but I don't know. I'm done, thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Senku. Mr. Shea.
Well, there's just, you know, there's just so much. This is my first time to this. This is so much constructive information and points of view being shared here. Each one that I hear sparks so many things. What Helen was saying, what she started off her very first comment about there not really being any microaggressions, and you know, I think that that's really helpful. I'm gonna use it. That's gonna stay with me, and I'm gonna run with that, because the you know, I think they're just, you know, those so-called microaggressions, I think they're just aggressions, and they'll do it to the maximum capacity they can in any given situation. So if they're in a situation where they can chase you, if the situation is one that allows for them chasing you down the street with baseball bats and chains, they will aggress to that extent. If it's to where they can only you know, all they can do is say like use the story I gave about being amongst them, and then, you know, someone hitting someone and they stop, you nigger, to each other. And you know, I was there, and I remember thinking to myself at the time, why would they even say that if I'm there? Wouldn't they think, and you know, normal polite society, you would think, you know, okay, I usually say this word, but when there's a nigger present, maybe I won't say it. But I've come to realize, no, actually, they probably were sort of doubling down on it, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like going out of their way to say these comments while I'm there. in order to reinforce the system of white supremacy. I'm also reminded of a time when I was a little younger and in junior high school, and I went to school in Manhattan. A lot of so-called Jewish classmates, white people who would classify themselves as Jews, practice the Jewish religion. And one who would be my so-called friend, or a very best friend or something, and we were kind of joking, what you'd call snapping back and forth and so on. And I remember one of the things he said, it was, he said, yeah, Che, like my people don't own your people. And that was the joke. And I just took it as a so-called diss back and forth. I laughed it off. I'd remember going home and relaying the joke to my father, my attempted father, and he says, and he just sort of shook his head and said, wow, see how they teach them from such a young age, they already know what it is. And I didn't grasp the significance of it at the time, but it's something that's obviously stayed with me. That's just reinforcing the system. I don't know, it's just aggression. It's just a reinforcement of the system. They're dedicated, as Gus on the Cow says, dedicated to preserving and protecting this system in any way that they see that they can, and getting every square inch that they can. I think with this what Dr. Singh just mentioned about the Hispanics. I think as they see in the United States, the so-called Hispanic is a demographic that's growing and growing, and it's obviously as it grows, it will acquire power in the United States. I think they want to carve a piece of themselves, a piece of that out for themselves. I remember if Hispanic ever popped up on any sort of census thing, there wasn't the stipulation of Hispanic non-black or Hispanic white or anything. It would just be Hispanic or something of that nature. But now they want to specify, I think, because they want to carve out a piece of that demographic for themselves. I think even with women, so whatever feminine, women's liberations, whatever those different confusing names they give to it, but as women become more vocal and attempt to take power, I think the gay movement is a way for white males to get the gay and so-called trans movement is a way for white males to actually carve a piece of that, so that actually for the most part, white males who are saying that they're transitioning into women, or they're trans women, or however they refer to it, that they're now at the forefront. White males are at the forefront of the women's movement. I think they just want to carve a piece out of everything. They don't want anyone else to have anything else. They want to take everything for themselves, not to discount white women play, but white males, especially, I think, to a very large extent, even to mistreat their own females. So yes, just thank you. Lots of inspiration in the things that everyone is saying. Very constructive. Thank you. I'll mute my line.
Thank you, sir. I most certainly agree. I appreciating everyone's comments and sharing, especially the folks who are sharing their experiences from this race war that the racist white supremacists are waging against us. For the folks who haven't shared, would you like to participate? Ray, it's I can't hear you, Ray.
Can I be heard?
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah, it's better. All right. When the term microaggression is being used, that's the same as being passive aggressive.
Say again.
Say again. The term microaggression, when that's being used, that's the same as passive aggressive.
Your mic.
I think it's oh, you want to go answer, Helen? Oh, hello.
Ray, if you can get a little bit closer to the mic, I think you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong. Wait, are you there?
Yes, can I be heard?
Oh, that's better.
Yes, go ahead, Ray.
He says he's
Oh,
yeah. Yep.
Okay, can I be heard now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now I was asking when the term microaggression is being used, is that the same as or similar to being passive aggressive?
Nope.
My apologies for the tardiness, but I didn't hear a breakdown of what was meant by the term microaggression.
Would you like a definition of so-called microaggression?
Yes, please, a concise one. My apologies.
I don't have one in front of me. Let me look real quick. Right. Let me see. Microaggression, indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against members of a marginalized group. Got that right?
Yes, ma'am, I do, and I definitely can attest to experiencing that.
Okay.
Yeah, like in the workplace, for example, recently I was told that I had completed a task which was, I'll say, deemed quite difficult to perform, but after doing so, the white supervisor told me, quote, "You're golden, pony boy." I have no idea what that means. If anyone out there in Counter Racist Radio Land would like to chime in, you're golden pony boy. I think I could classify that as microaggression.
Yeah. But to not use the confusing rhetoric and words that the white people have produced, that's simply act of racism, simply mistreatment.
Correct. Please don't use the term microaggression. Ray, you will remember that. I promise you will remember that 10, 20 years from now. Sir, that is not micro. There's nothing small about it. That's just a white person practicing racism. Plain and simple.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Mr. Smoky Damages.
Well, I was gonna say I would have loved to have gone into the question mode there with that person and asked them what they mean when they use that that whatever that term. What is it you said? What, golden pony boy or something? I'd definitely ask them what they meant when they said it.
You know, for the sake of furthering the dialogue, I will ask that. But you know, sometimes it's kind of difficult. You know, you don't want to take that mask off in the workplace, but it seems as if the white supremacists, one way or another, are going to force you to. So that's quite all right. I do enjoy asking questions.
Well put, Mr. Ray 1/0. Reminds me of just the very tacky workplace I used to be in. I used to work at this place called Rave Cinemas. It used to be at the Crenshaw Mall, the mall that the white people are currently taking back from the non-white people. So there used to be this white manager, two white managers actually. First one was a regular employee, And when they started promoting people to manager position, of course, he was the first to get promoted to manager because he was white. And I don't know if it's as in it probably does add context to their behavior, but both of them were countersexuals. And they would say a lot of racist and incorrect things just right in front of us. But I just think we are working in like just such a victimized place to where, and I say it that way because, and what I mean by that, I should say, is that the people working at the rave, like myself, we were just confused victims. We didn't know that we should be suspicious of these white people. We thought these white people were just, our co-workers. And so when they said very, very suspicious things, it just kind of went over our heads. And I just think that's a really bold act of racism, because these white people just said so much off the wall stuff to each other around us. And I think they knew they would get away with it because they knew we didn't have a clue. So that's why it's like bold racism. And I remember I remember hearing that one of them had said that I as an 0526, that I seem like the kind of person who has bodies under the floorboards. One of the countersexual white people said this about me to another white person. I don't know if they said it together. It could have been Zach or it could have been Tom, but it's one of them. And as I remember this story and my less confusion, I'm like, wow, this is some real projection right here. Because statistically speaking, who's more likely to have bodies under their floorboards? Me, a black male, a powerless black male, or someone who is classified as white and who is also countersexual, like them, like Jeffrey Dahmer. They're more similar to a person who has actually had bodies that are under the floorboards than myself. I'm more likely to end up under someone's floorboards than to, be, I don't know, killing people and doing all sorts of things. So it was just really interesting projection. And I definitely got to see, I'm able to process all the like white anxieties and how like if white people are working with you on like a lower level job and they don't get promoted soon, they definitely will be out of there. And yeah, it was really awesome to see that just the power of white supremacy, it being able to promote the only white guy there who was not working as hard as nearly the victims, but he got promoted first. It's just awesome to see that. And for no one to not once say the word racism or not even think anything of it. But it just goes to show the state of victims of racism. We just don't have a clue for the most part what is going on. And I didn't either. When they said that, when I heard about that rumor, that gossiping about me, I just thought, that's interesting. That's interesting. I don't have bodies on the floorboards, but I didn't lose any sleep over it. I didn't give it much thought. But I definitely should have. I definitely should have got some sort of investigation started. Or I really could have I wish I would have been into counter racism back then, because that would have been a great opportunity to maybe get some sort of compensation by having some of those kind of rumors being told about me. But yeah, confused victims aren't supposed to have that information or those thinking processes ever. So, any folks like to share an experience?
05, if we have time, I'd like to read an excerpt, because that line that I just mentioned before kind of just stayed on my mind. And so it's from a book called The Outsiders. Do we have a moment?
I would suggest go ahead. I would suggest reading it right now if it came to mind.
Okay, so a white man in my job said, "Stay your golden pony boy." And so that's what I Googled, your golden pony boy. And it says that Stay Gold is a reference to the Robert Frost poem that Ponyboy recites to Johnny when the two hide out in the Windrixful church. One line in the poem reads, "Nothing gold can stay," meaning that all good things must come to an end. Here, Johnny urges Ponyboy to remain gold or innocent. Welsing moments on the job.
Interesting. He like that. The Horvis calling you that can mean could definitely mean something. Could definitely perceive you in a certain way. But to we're just speculating, so that's all I say.
Oh, 05. Check this out. It says Johnny now senses the uselessness of fighting. He knows that Ponyboy is better than the average hoodlum and wants Ponyboy to hold on to the golden qualities that set him apart from his companions. Amazing.
The power words.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That is. It almost sounds as if the employer was saying to you that they're watching you, like stay gold, if that means like sort of innocence or anything, like stay gold, pony boy, as if to say we're watching you, and you know, as long as you stay like how we want you, then you'll be all right. I don't know. That's what I got from that.
Not to mention, I have a hairstyle referred to as dreadlocks, and they're kind of long. And all of a sudden, now we have to, males with hair past shoulder length have to wear them in a ponytail. I've been told this within the last, I'd say, 3 weeks. Yeah.
Wow, that's seems very targeted, and the way I would decode those combination words being told to you is that they may perceive you to be one of the good Negroes. You know, even with your quote unquote dreadlocks. So that's what I mean by stay good and remain one of the good Negroes. You know, I always equate gold to melanin to blackness. Dr. Francis Chris Wilson, ISIS papers covers that dynamic.
And I think also the familiarity, the presumption on the part of this employer, just like that's also a form of practicing this racism. This just how comfortable they are. Even again, to return to the Helen B's story about the white people coming to a black neighborhood to come to the church, the fact that they feel so comfortable that they can come to our neighborhood and come to our churches. I don't think non-white people feel the same way about white neighborhoods and white churches. Just that comfortability, that's a comfortability based on the high, we're lower, and they have freedom of movement within our sectors, whereas we might not have the same freedom of movement with them. I think it's still just another reinforcement of the hierarchy.
Oh, wow. You saying that, Mr. Shea, reminds me of another experience, of another reality, because that happened to me and my victim twin brother. A white person named Justin, when we were about 14, when we were 14, living alone in our dwelling, and I just don't know how this white person like found us. I don't know. Something must have been in the airwaves, or something, because this white male who was much, much, much older than me and my twin, he was probably in his late 20s, if that. But he found us. He found me and my victim twin brother, and we became associates. You know, he taught me and my victim twin brother how to pick locks. He would, and then one day he took us over to one of his to one, I don't know their association. I just know they were associated, and he was a white man, an older white man, and that older white man introduced, just showed me and my victim twin brother, you know, bestiality porn. And we were like, that's something, that's interesting. So the fact that this white guy literally came to South Central, came to the hood, and became friends with me and my victim twin brother, all while we happened to be living alone for that period of time. Very just very odd, and it's very telling that the white people, they know what's up. They know we are like at. That's what domination looks like. Them having the ability to just, I want some black friends. I'm gonna go to the hood and get some black friends. I don't care if I'm 15 years older than them. You know, I'm gonna get some black friends, teach them how to do non-constructive things, and have them around race soldiers who are gonna introduce them to bestiality porn. So that's what's going on, and the system of white supremacy. This is why the system should have long been replaced with a system of justice, and this is why one of the infinite reasons why we should replace the system with a system of justice, because bestiality porn shouldn't exist. You know, animals are also victims of racism, white supremacy, and victims of the just barbaric and vile actions of people classified themselves as white. And it's just terroristic, just very terroristic, and very, 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 very tacky and trashy and vile. You know, and I do have like a good ending to that story, because Justin disappeared. You know, after the sabotage was done, after he had taught me, my victim, twin brother, how to do all this non-constructive stuff, he just disappeared. And then he, out of nowhere, a couple of weeks or months later, he came back, and I remember hearing the interaction because my uncle happened to be there, and my uncle, who recently became another casualty of war, died of this disease known as cancer. But he was known as Big Trap Dog, was what he was known by. He's quite serious, even though he couldn't read, and he was not attempting to solve the race problem. But Justin came looking for us, and I remember hearing my uncle curse him out, you know, and I was like, oh, like I didn't go out and try to help him or nothing, you know. I knew what was happening, but I had no hard feelings towards Justin. I just didn't care to get involved. But yeah, that's the many tacky things that have happened, and I'm 100% sure that that white person who showed me that content, I'm 100% sure he's a pedophile. I'm sure he's molested people before. You know, him showing me that content could have been some sort of parasitic molestation going on. But I don't know. I again never, my victim mother was never told about this. I never reported this to any so-called adults. You know, and I'm sure that's how it is for most people. And the Constitution can't known as hoods. We don't really, you know, talk about these things ever, which is why I think this forum is constructive. I'll meet my lines. See if folks want to. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. B.
There are 5, if I'm not mistaken. what Justin was doing to you is something called grooming. It's the beginning stages of molestation, definitely. Yeah. Something else. White people are extremely comfortable with us. They're not afraid. When you hear people talk about, oh, white people are afraid of us, they are not afraid of us. Not at all. And they enjoy practicing racism, white supremacy on us. They enjoy asking us questions, and that is why I'm big on asking them questions. I don't like to see them asking us a lot of questions. We don't ask nothing back. I mean, I understand that in the workplace. Yeah, I understand that. But outside the workplace, nah, free range. You could ask as many questions as you like. And please try to get comfortable with asking them questions and start off small. And yes, I get afraid at times. Sometimes I'm afraid. Sometimes my heart races, but I'm also excited. I enjoy it too. So that's what pushes me to ask the questions. And I want to share an experience that I had when I used to work at Wendy's as a fast food restaurant. Um, the front Wendy's is a white girl with red hair, two pigtails, freckles, or whatever. So at the restaurant, at this fast food restaurant, we had three white managers, two white men and one white woman. And business was kind of slow. So one of them came up with the idea of dressing up a non-white employee, female, as Wendy. Now you heard what I just described her as. Red hair, two pigtails. Think Swedish. Think as white can be.
Oh my
So yes, and all of my coworkers are non-white, all of them. So they picked this young lady. They picked this young non-white female. She was about maybe 16, 17 years old. They pick her and they ask her, hey, we want you to dress up as Wendy. She says no. So out of feeling, and I love the backlit, I don't know, I forgot how to say it. Black excellence, put those two words together. I don't know how to pronounce it right now. But the black self-respect that young lady had, that black female had to say no. And she knew that she was going to be fired. So she just was like, I quit. So we're all huddled over. There's a little group of us, and we're huddled in the corner, and we're like, "Oh, who's next?" Like, yes. So, like, we're all. The word racism was never brought up. We were just like, "Oh, that ain't right. That's not right. Something's not right." We just kept saying right, but we never said racism. And we're all huddled in the corner and we're like, oh, who's next? Oh, what would you do if they asked you? I don't know. I got bills to pay. Da, 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 da. Right. So they asked another young lady. Now, the first young lady, the one who said no, she was like, this is important. I don't mean to bring up complexion, but she was like a golden brown. The next female was like Wesley Snipes complexion. Not to say anything disparaging, but there's a reason why I'm saying this. Now, you see a picture of what Wendy looks like. So you're going to put a red wig, freckles, and it's a little outfit. That's not even the correct outfit. She has a little white and blue outfit. It looks like a maid outfit. It's real little. So that's what, and unfortunately, she said yes. And she did it. And they gave her an extra like $50 afterwards or whatever. And everybody was like, oh, so disappointed. Nobody called her names or anything. Thank God. Thank the creator. But we were like, oh wow, this is sad. This is bad. This is a bad look. And yeah, and I didn't even see that as racism back then. That's why I'm telling the story. I just saw it as incorrect, not right. And see, if I'd have known about racism or, would have been familiar with the term racism, then I could have used that term. Then I could have countered that in some way, but didn't know. So mute my mic.
That's yeah, I think that's something that can really damage a victim's mind to have to experience something like that. I've definitely the very disturbing story. It's very, 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 very sick. But then again, the system has trained a a lot of victims of racism, Black females, non-white females, to alter their hair to look like the Wendy's hair or a white woman's hair. So but still, that I'm sure that really damaged that coworker's mind. Definitely active racism. Folks,
Wow. Yeah. Wow. I don't even know what to say about that story that Helen B just shared. Seriously, I tell you, down through the years, I must say, yeah, I've found that a lot of white supremacists definitely like to. I mean, they enjoy playing practical jokes on non-white people, especially Black people.
That has to be like a sick joke because, you know, it just looks incorrect. You know, the whole history, it just, you know, like while she was in that costume, she was like definitely some sort of Black caricature in these white people's minds. And that's why it's like the sick joke, you know. And the joke is always victims of white supremacy.
And she had to parade up and down the street giving out coupons to Wendy's. So yeah, it was a sight. It was horrible.
And just
wow.
the whole act of like asking questions. I'm just so new. It's so pitiful that I'm so new to the whole. Hey, you should ask more questions. Yeah, I'm so new to that. Because I used to work with this in this bookstore at this at my community college I used to go to, and I used to work with this old white guy, this old angry white person, and you know, I'm just like this, you know, very like oblivious victim, you know, working around a bookstore, and this white person is possibly being super racist around me, and I just don't have any awareness or ability to detect it, nor do I have the awareness that I should be asking questions if I have access to around this older white person who definitely has been around, who was definitely around when, like, you know, he was able to swim in peace in a pool that said no colors allowed. So I you know, it will be when it begins to happen and affect the number. Wonderful thing to see Black people, you know, in question mode all the time, asking white people questions, especially in the workplace, because asking questions in the workplace, especially questions about your training, can definitely lead to your workplace experiences being more constructive and less terroristic, possibly. There are no guarantees in the system of white supremacy. But yeah, and I say that because Ms. B, you and your Wendy's coworkers held it up talking about the incident, but not having the awareness or ability to call it what it was, racism, white supremacy. And this is too common. 2021. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, another thing about the questions, asking questions on the job. Oh, most definitely ask questions on the job, most definitely. But when I was talking about questions, I'm talking about like more relation to racism. Like I could understand someone staying away from that, but definitely if it comes to your training, you need to know something about your job and how to, you know, do your job better and this, that, and oh, most definitely take notes, ask questions, do whatever it is that you have to do, you know, to educate yourself on the job, because I find a lot of times that we are not trained properly. They don't train us properly. We don't know, and then when we mess up, then it's on your fault. Oh, how long you been here? How come, you know, how is it that you didn't know? So most definitely ask questions on the job pertaining to the job, of course.
Speaking about this, I actually have a question. I something I'd like to put to the group, and maybe get some feedback, and particularly from Miss B or some of the other participants who it seems are a little older. I'm not discounting help from younger ones, but who may have had some experience in this. I am currently I'm in school now. I've gone back to school. I'm doing a doctorate program, and in order to go ahead and I'm at the point where I'm going to begin work on my dissertation, and I need help from various scholars in the area who are invariably white men, or white females, but generally white males. And so I've got to contact them one by one and see if and get ask them questions, sort of interview them, so to speak, and get assistance. Um, but I am, I'm retarded. I'm woefully unprepared, poorly trained. I just don't have the background that other classmates of mine have. Just the awareness of different research methodologies, or the sort of the cultural vocabulary, the experience with, my education was just not on par with theirs, and so, besides the fact, that I have to meet with these people virtually. I've got to sort of brace for impact when the Zoom camera first comes on with these people. I've got to think about, I actually have to, as a victim of white supremacy, I got to think about, if they see this black face, they saw a Spanish name, they probably already went thinking, I don't know, they expected this face though. I've got to prepare for that. But beyond that, even if we get past that, I've got to think about, while I'm interacting with them, for bigger and smaller issues, I'm just inadequate in many, many ways. I may have the talent and the intelligence to get it done, but the training. And so when I have that lack, I know that, for example, we talk about compensatory, asking for sort of compensatory help or compensatory contributions. I may have to let people know I don't know that, or I'm not trained in that, or I want to accomplish this within the research, but can you help me with that technique? I never got that in my education. I don't know how to go about it. And this is something that's really troubling me, really concerning me. I don't know if I'm being clear here, if anyone has any input on how they might handle that, or any suggestions, it'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, what I can share from my personal experiences and dealing with higher education, and having to get lots of assistance from white people, I've learned that, especially in these institutions, these so-called educational institutions, they have like a lot of resources that are often untapped. But then when it comes to black people often do not get the resources that these institutions have access to. So my advice would just simply be, just to ask for the help that you think you need. If you need to find more ways, research methodologies, just ask the professors or assistant professors, whoever you're engaging with, for where you can go for the information that can help you do what you're trying to do. Because yeah, an email, a well-written email, just simply asking a white person for help in that area of higher education, it can go a long way. From my experiences, it has gone a long way. Just the ability and the awareness that I can like reach out and ask this person a question, ask person for help, because I know that it's not often that students and college and I don't know about people in the PhD program. I haven't started mine yet, but I know that it's not often for people to develop a pattern for actually emailing and communicating with their professors. I think is that's pretty rare, but it's very constructive to do so. If anyone else wants to chime in and give him some advice or couldn't answer the question, feel free.
Yes, can I
Quaker, your mic is unintelligible. All right, while Kwaku is sorting out his mic, let's, if anyone else wants to chime in, feel free.
Is that better?
Say again, Kwaku.
That better?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep.
I just wanted to, on Chase's point, I just wanted to add that I agree with one thing that I've learned is definitely that the universities do have those resources. Oftentimes, like
Your mic is coming in and out. It may be best to wait until you get a stable connection so we can hear the full dialogue.
okay, I'll mute my mic right now.
I was going to say actually, just a quick one, in response to what's the name, Shay Garcia? Yeah, I was going to say it's a bit of a fine line, I guess, you have to walk with asking questions of white people, but in terms of fearing that they might think that you're unqualified, or I think with my experience of a lot of white people, most white people anyway already assume that black people are severely unqualified. They always think that they are more qualified than people who are classified as black, especially. So any questions that you want to ask them in terms of getting resources from them and requests from them, etc., I think, yeah, you definitely should ask them.
Oh, I would add something too. Since I'm like currently doing school and whatnot, I wouldn't recommend doing half the things I do though. But as far as like, I haven't written a dissertation yet. But as far as when it's come to papers, I'll turn in unfinished papers underneath this system. I don't care. But as far as like your professors, get stuff in writing via email and messages through whatever website system y'all probably have set up, and you can always refer to that on assignments, and you can always use that as evidence in case a professor ever tries to do some stuff against you. And then if you have to actually do Zoom calls and stuff, you probably need to set aside a place in your prison cell with like a white backdrop or something. I don't know if you've listened to workplace racism or whatnot, but they mentioned to have a clear backdrop. And I don't know, as far as like your area, if there's like noise outside or whatnot, because the usual suspects, they usually pick up on that. Like, I don't know if y'all can hear like the victim children outside playing in the background right now, because I know I can hear them. But like the usual suspects, they pick up on it. Like this nigger lives in a noisy area, and they'll pick up all that on a Zoom call. And maybe you can even ask to record the Zoom call. Say like you forget stuff, and then you can have the Zoom call to help with your assignment, or it's just evidence in general. But I wouldn't recommend doing half the things I do, like turning in unfinished papers. But you gotta do what you gotta do as far as college and university. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, basically, I don't know. I think if I had turned in unfinished paper, that would have saved me a lot of stress. So that's my 2 cents to that.
Can I be heard now? Is that better?
Yes, sounds so.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add also, like the resources are usually there. You just have to ask questions. I know an experience for me, myself, I didn't want to ask questions because I didn't want to seem like I didn't know or I wasn't qualified. But those resources are there. Like oftentimes, like at my university, they offered like writing centers and like speech consultations. So if you have presentations or even like you write your papers, you send it to them, they'll mark it up for you and send it back, give you feedback and stuff like that. But also I wanted to add that I kind of was going out with smoking damages added. Oftentimes victims get to college and they're like woefully below where they need to be. So I think it's accurate in saying like they expect you to be seeking out these resources. And definitely, so I would start by, you know, asking the professor, whoever the instructor might be, asking them first, like, where can I get the resources at? And sending an emailing them, asking them, but make sure you get in writing, like Dan said, because those resources are there. And I can't, under a system of racism, white supremacy, can't force anybody to do anything, especially as a victim. But I'm going to say that it is a part of their job to assist you. So they definitely need to give you some assistance when you ask for it. That's all.
Very well.
Suggestion. Definitely agree with 05 with the emails. Ask questions, write your questions down. Also be honest. You know, let it be known. I know this might be really hard, but let it be known. Look, I am not, you know, I'm not up to par with everybody, or however you want to put it. And, you know, just be honest. Definitely be honest with the professors, with fellow students, and email the fellow students as well. Ask them questions. Look it up on YouTube, whatever it is you don't know. Check out your college library for any information you feel you might be lacking. And also don't expect much. When you have low expectations, sorry to say that, you know, when you're provided the information, you'll be okay. You know, you won't feel a certain way. But if, you know, expecting a lot, then, and you don't get it, then you're disappointed. So to avoid that, don't expect much, be honest, write your questions down, and, you know, email fellow students, email your professors. And yeah, that's all I have.
I'd like to add to that. Also, you know, in the part when it comes to holding them accountable, know how to hold them accountable for doing, you know, for the work that they're supposed to do. Because when I was in college, I noticed that there were a lot of there were people that I would go to for resources, but oftentimes they would give me the runaround with different things. And with my confusion at the time, I didn't know anything about like being able, like who to go talk to if someone wasn't doing what they were supposed to do. And I think that if you find out whatever the policy is, you know, whatever they have in writing that says who's supposed to do what and who you're supposed to go to if you have any grievances and stuff like that, you know, you should know that so that you can make sure that somebody is held accountable to, you know, to just apply that pressure that needs to be applied if they don't do what you need them to do.
Awesome. A very constructive assortment of answers. Thanks, everyone. Mr. Garcia, I hope that what was shared will be of use to you for your PhD. Definitely awesome. I don't know if it's on code to congratulate a victim, but I definitely want to congratulate you and commend you for pursuing a PhD. I'm also attempting to do the same. So,
yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate your acknowledgement, and thank you to all the participants for every for everything that was offered. I think, how can I say this? I know you know, those are the answers I expect. Those are the only answers. Just have to be honest and continue on and go on. I think that, you know, I needed some brief psychological support. But just to be clear, these professors that I'm contacting are actually not a part of my university. I'm contacting professors that are in this area, you know, sort of around the world. That's why it's all on Zoom and so on. So, you know, there's actually not, there's not that obligation. There's not that sort of ethical or legal responsibility there. But yeah, it is you know, I think like Smoking Damages said, it's a tricky thing. You know, because actually, you know, you ask certain questions, you appear unqualified. I appreciate the fact that they're going to expect that anyway. And also to speak, if you appear unqualified, you're also playing, you know, unfortunately, you're sort of playing into their superiority complex, which may, unfortunately, it may work in your favor, or fortunately, or unfortunately, in both. How confusing it is, because that sort of endears you to them, perhaps. I don't know, but then, you know, you answer some questions, you're a little too smart. Now you're a smart Negro, and you know they may take offense at that. They may sort of recoil in instinctual response. It's a funny thing, but and there's a bit of pride, because when you know the material, you don't want to appear, you know, buffoonish or over. You never want to appear less than, you know, what you believe you really are. But so yes, I thank you. I'm taking everything to heart. Everything that you said. Thank you. Very constructive.
You have to get those professors to give you the keys to mastery in that particular field. You have to get them to tell you what's not in those books. You know, you're gonna have to humble yourself and come to the master as an apprentice and learn what you can learn. You have to take advantage of those who drunk off their own arrogance. You know these professors better than we do. You know, you have to talk to them. You have to practice compensatory conversation control, and you should be on your way.
Oh, one other thing I would add too, if you ever decide to go with my suggestion and then turn in an unfinished dissertation, I did use all available resources to me. The white people at the writing center, they were no help. They didn't help with my essay or anything. But yeah, I did use all resources before doing what I did, especially considering my understanding of the system. I was like, I'm a nigger, I got better things to do. And I just turned in 3 unfinished papers. So just think about your time and energy if you decide to go with that option.
Well, I'm reminded of another terroristic story by Dan's comments. This takes place. This was a white female, and white women do it best, because I was totally blown away by this experience, and really disheartened as well, because I was attempting to be a really constructive student, whatever that is. So I had this class, some sociology class, where I basically was taught all this stuff, and I remembered it, and so much so that I even when it was time to study for the final, I even helped my twin brother study, because that was one of the classes that we took together over there. And so the final comes, and I studied really well, because the final was super easy, and I finished really fast. And but in the beginning of the class, she says like something along the lines that when you finish, you just have to wait until everyone else finishes, until you can leave. So I finished. I'm just sitting there, just super getting bored out of my mind. I just started drawing. I just started drawing on my hand, and just waiting. And then I see people start. And I see people leaving. I'm like, man, I guess we can leave now. So I turn in my final and I leave, right? And at the time, I had a A in the class, A plus actually in the class, which was like a certain percentage, right? And then after the final, Trey gets his final back. Trey gets an A in the class, and the grade I get in the class is specifically um it was like I don't know, I don't think it was a B, but whatever it was just enough to take my A plus down to like a B or a B minus. I think it was a B. And I hit her up. I was like, "Yo, like what happened?" I was like, how did my grade drop? I'm pretty sure I did good on the final. And then she hits me back through the email, and she's like, "Your she's like your final was not good work," something like that. And I suspect she was just practicing racism because I know I did it really well on that nonsense I was forced to regurgitate. And if the person who I hope study got A, of course I should have got A, because everything he knew, he learned it with the help from me. So I think she sabotaged me. And I think I don't know if I called her a witch during our exchanges during the emails and my confusion and anger. I may have called her a witch in one of the last emails I sent her for her sabotaging my grade and ruining my uh, GPA. I was trying to maintain a 4.0, and she definitely is the person who sabotaged that. But yeah, white female. Um, yeah, really, really deceptive because you were prior to that interaction. I thought she was like a pretty chill, so-called sweet, nice person. But as the code said, white people are very good at being nice and very good at putting on these pretend friendly personas. But their nature of being at war with us will always show itself. Folks like to share.
Yeah, echoing what you just said. Yeah, I usually found that down through the years that if you show white people that you know more than they expect of you, sometimes some white people are a little bit shocked or they appear shocked, and they I don't know, like quote unquote like sort of full of praise for you, which I don't take any pleasure from at all anyway. And then other times they definitely, like in your case, they definitely seek to mistreat you further because they then perceive you as uppity or doing things above your station. Like, how dare you show that you're as qualified as us good white people.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Smoky Damages. Definitely makes a lot of sense that thinking. And yeah, I saw the white people leave me in the class. I thought, hey, I could leave, but nope. I should have known that. Hey, I'm a black male. She's looking for a moment to sabotage me, and she's just been playing friendly with me. But yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say yeah. In terms of war stories as well, I was gonna share a last one as well. I was gonna say like the at this moment in time as well, the reason that I'm unemployed at the moment as well is like earlier when we were talking about walking that fine line, especially in workplace as well. Like down through the years, I'd listened to quite a few of the cows interviews, but I never really took that much notice of the workplace racism stuff, and that was definitely to my detriment in my last job, which is like why I'm not working at the moment, because I used to be, I'm still a bike mechanic now, but I used to work in a store. I'll just say for purposes of this, a well-known bike store here in England. It begins with H. And there was just a lot of workplace racism going on, like open comments and stuff like that. It wasn't like that when I first got there. And just down through the years, when this new sort of like management took over, it was more of a kind of over racist atmosphere, like pretty much every day. And there's like quite a few non-white people working there as well that didn't really want to say anything, and I started asking lots of questions of the racists, right, with not really knowing exactly how to navigate this. And if I had known a bit more, and probably if I'd listened to a bit more of the cows workplace racism, I definitely would have handled the situation a bit differently. But anyway, yeah, my questions just led to a bit of an investigation, but an investigation of the racist people who were making the comments. And yeah, and the upshot of it is basically that I lost my job basically because I didn't really understand how to navigate it properly, and it just really got on top of me. And then there was like I said, a massive investigation. I went off sick at that time as well because it was really stressful. And yeah, and even though they were paying me for quite a long time, they didn't really want to take action on the people, the white people at work who were making these racist comments and stuff like that. And because I hadn't realized, or because I hadn't been, yeah, because I didn't really know that much better how to navigate asking questions, and knowing even when to ask questions, and what type of question to ask, etc., etc. I completely just didn't do it properly, and it just resulted in me losing my job. So yeah, just my little bit of advice there in terms of the shit that I went through recently in terms of losing my job. Yeah, just be careful like how you ask those questions, or if you ask those types of questions regarding racism at work, just careful how you go about it. Yeah, that's all I've got to say on that.
Yeah, it's always a good piece of advice to refer to, like, refer to things as a matter of is it being correct or not. You don't have to mention racism if you're just regarding it as being correct or not, or is it mistreatment or not. You don't have to mention racism of that, or also what workplace racism. The cows also demonstrates is the policy. Many a times it's not policy to mistreat and make fun of other coworkers. So simply asking questions or maneuvering in that way probably could have saved you a lot of time and energy, perhaps. But in the future, I'm sure you have gathered the understanding of the correct combination of words to use when dealing with um, the area of labor.
Yep, you definitely live and learn. If I could transplant myself back, knowing what I know now, I definitely would have handled the situation a lot differently. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually, yeah, and that's the reality for a lot of victims. Like, and this is why I appreciate everyone sharing, because when folks share, like I'm able to recall, and my brain computer is able to compute new information, because regret is a sensation, a feeling, a concept that I used to hate feeling. I used to like hate regretting stuff. I used to, just hate thinking about my past and all this stuff, and just feel so much regret and anguish of just of the stuff that I've done. But that's a programming that I've definitely deleted from my brain computer. I no longer regret, but I reflect and process and definitely correct. Um, that's how I attempt to exist now, and I think a lot of victims would dwell and dwell on things and can dwell on things, and it's very common uh, sensation for us to want to just go back in time with the information we have now and correct things or change things. But unfortunately, we don't have that power, so we must use it. Use the information for the future and for the now. But I totally understand, Mr. Smoky Damages. You just what you said just reminded me of my previous relationship with regret and how I just many of the things that I regretted are none of them are things of my doing. They're just things that have been produced by the system of white supremacy that I've had to deal with. So yeah, I didn't create the system. I don't regret much of anything now. Just attempt to understand and adapt. Always adapt.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Thanks for saying that. Actually, I think I just wrote that down. Yeah, reflect, process, and correct. Yeah. I think I think I'll use that actually. Thanks for that.
No worries. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if there's oh yeah, I am gonna share another story because I think this just goes to show and reflect a lot of what was played in the audio clips, and this one just demonstrates like just the codes, like really like the codes and words, the codes and that white people pick up on, and just how the black existence is just so and so incorrect while under the system. So this happened again in a concentration camp known as South Central. I was going to my associate's house to play on the Wii, a video game console. I had it in my backpack, and I would take this shortcut where I would like hop the fence and cut through this school. And I'm doing this one day, and the moment I do it, a law enforcement stops me as an Asian guy, and he's like twisting his finger around, and I'm thinking he's telling me to go around because I'm thinking I'm still in like elementary school, and this authority figure just telling me to go around like they would to you if you were in a schoolyard and you had like crossed some sort of boundaries or something. But no, he was telling me to turn around because he was going to search me because I'm a black male, and doesn't matter that I'm 15 or at the time. Doesn't matter, I'm a black male, and this so-called Asian law enforcement is gonna frisk me. And so he he turns me around, he frisks me, and his backup arrived. He's by himself. Backup arrives. Two white cops, right? And they come. I don't know if they said something or or um or what, but I said something, and then they immediately put me in handcuffs, right? And then they hear the music coming from my headphones that I was listening to during the terrorist attack, and it's the Foo Fighters, right? And they're like, at least he's not listening to rap, right? And I do think because I was listening to this white band, I do think I was probably spared from further victimization, because after that, after they discovered I was, listening to the Foo Fighters and I didn't have any weapons on me, they kind of let me go, you know, and they definitely could have had some fun with me as they have as they tend to do in that area. So it's just really tragic that that, and I was probably spared further mistreatment for because I was listening to white music, and yeah, it's just to be stopped by law enforcement and to have no clue why, to not have no clue of the system of white supremacy is super dangerous. And Yeah, and yeah, definitely many encounters I've had where yeah, a lot of people have not survived similar encounters. So yeah, and just the reality of South Central itself is a grave example that we are definitely living in a system of white supremacy, and that should be another one of the infinite reasons why we produce a system of justice, guaranteeing no one is mistreated, and those who need help receive constructive help. Very simple concept, I think. And if a person is not wanting of the system, then very, very suspicious and very, very much someone who possibly doesn't deserve to be on a planet where people want to put an end to killing and correctness. You know, just got to go because the system is so vile, and Black people are not deserving to be to experience what we experience every day. You know, Black people didn't do anything to deserve being prisoners of war besides letting white people get this thing up and running. So, super incorrect system. Replacing it is a much better use of one's time and energy than twerking, than diversus, than Area 3 entertainment. They're doing a lot of what victims have been programmed to do. So I do hope that this broadcast finds victims and just gives them that encouragement, maybe that little push they need to um, begin to study the race problem. Because it's, I don't know, Neely Fuller is about to check out, and he's not gonna probably get to see the race problem solved. But it could be as simple as getting enough victims on board, and we can solve this problem overnight. So it's very possible still, but it's not gonna happen if victims come across the sort of information and still don't make any constructive adjustments to their existence. But I may have rambled just now. I don't know. If folks like to chime in, share.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm going to try and keep this concise. I wanted to talk about the time when I've been victimized at work. This was my, thinking about this when Helen shared her stories at Wendy's. So my first job, I got it when I was 17, is at Chuck E. Cheese. For those of you who don't know what Chuck E. Cheese is, it's I guess what they call a family restaurant. It has kind of like an arcade. Um, it serves pizza and stuff there. So this is my first job. Being a young victim, I am very excited to finally start making some money because victims don't have money. Their family units aren't allowed to have money. So excited to start making money for myself. I got hired. Uh, I was just working 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and my position was basically the mouse. As they have a mascot there. They have tons of birthday parties on the weekends. They needed a full-time chippy, full-time rat, I guess you could say. For those of you that don't know, the mascot is a mouse or a rat, whichever way you want to look at it. So I got hired. Was supposed to be I was mainly there to be at the birthday parties, to be the mascot, because that's what the kids come for. So I was employed there for about 3 years. When I did the parties, I took pride in my job. I like to I did get into it, being a victim, so doing the party, getting everybody like hyped, doing what a confused victim does, try to be the life of the party. So after a couple years go by, maybe not even a year, not even probably months. You know, I'm like, because there's parties going on, but they're not like I'm not doing that for 8 hours a day. You know, it's like maybe like every 2 hours, every 3 hours. And when I am in the costume, it's only like 15, 20 minutes. So I'm like, hey, I asked my manager, like, hey, can you start like training me in other stuff? And like, I'd like to do like a cash register or the game room. So like, I really wanted to do the game room because that's where fixing games and stuff seemed like a good time a good way to spend my time there, or even the kitchen. I wouldn't mind making pizzas. Um, Constantly kind of avoided the question, never really trained me, just had me doing stuff like prizes, just handing out prizes to kids, which required no training at all, filling up stuff, just just tasks that that nobody wanted to do. Those are the tasks that I was doing. So asked several times, can I get trained in this? Never got trained in it. So, but obviously, I was there for 3 years. So I don't know. Definitely victimized. Didn't realize it. And then, so also to they had these hosts that would take care of the parties. They would bring the families in, see them at their table, and basically just speak to the families the whole time that they were there for their parties. And I found out that these hostess actually get tipped. They get tip money, after their parties. A couple times, they're making $100 in tips for one party. So I was like, hey, can, are you guys like, can I get some of those tips? Can you guys split the tips? Is that like something that you'd be willing to do? Because I know in other like establishments, like they split the tips with like the people who are bussing tables or whatnot. I mean, I'm doing my part. The people keep coming back and they say, "Oh, what a wonderful job Chuck is doing," or not. So I feel that we should split these tips. That got brushed under that got pushed aside. Never really got an answer with that. Didn't seem to care or be bothered by it. Asked my manager. Never, I don't know what happened. It just never got done. Even though I asked multiple times. So that was kind of like something that I didn't realize at the time, but very much a caricature. The typical Black person, coming in trying to hype everybody up, giving a good time, while and and kind of like underemployment as well, because I'm definitely not getting paid the money I deserve. So that just kind of reminded me that I just remembered that mainly because of the story that Helen shared. It reminds me of how a lot of times I've been victimized, but I never realized it because of how confused I was. Yeah, that's all I have to share right now.
Yeah, that's how they do it. Like withholding information and opportunities. Um, Reminds me of my workplace back at the movie theaters. I never got to do podiums, which is where you're. No, I mean kind of, what was it called? Box office. I never got to do box office, which is where you sell the tickets. I only got to do cleaning positions and the concessions and podium, where we ticket taker person basically. So yeah, that's very common. And you being a Black male, of course, they don't want you in a position they know you would possibly enjoy. You're not there to enjoy. You're there to work, boy, which is probably their mentality. You know. So of course, it makes sense that those positions probably went to white people or someone closer to whiteness or less threatening.
Indeed, that I was there for 3 years. Perfectly capable. You keep hiring these people. You say you need somebody in kitchen. I've asked you several times, can train me in kitchen? You need a cashier. You need this. You need that. And I'm here, mainly just wasting my time. Like for some reason, refusing to train me. I believe my manager was white. I think I had three managers. I believe two of them were white and one was he was non-white but non-black. Um, so that definitely played a part.
Always does.
0526 0526, when you were speaking earlier about when you were pulled over by the police, and I can't remember if it was somebody in the WhatsApp group or if it was someone on Instagram who shared a little excerpt out of the book that was written by a white retired police officer. It was a sort of an expose of racism, white supremacy in the police, or the race soldiers force or police force. And one of the things, interestingly enough, from this excerpt, I'm going to see if I can find it another day and repost it. It was about when the race soldiers stop, especially black people, they look for a couple of key things, which is dreadlocks, baggy clothes, and one of the things you said, rap music. So when you was relaying your story just now, I was thinking that's where I saw that recently. One of the key things that they look for when they stop black people, especially black men, they listen to what kind of music we're listening to and stuff like that. And they pay attention to a few key things as to what action they take against us. So yeah.
Yep, that's very true. And at the time, I definitely had hair, not what white people have masterfully called dreadlocks and a way to mistreat us. But yeah, now I have freaking locks, which I'm super on alert whenever I see a race soldier. But when my interactions with race soldiers, while being aware of the code, they have I've survived them. But yeah, you're correct. He said listening. At least he's not listening to to rap, something along those lines. What was said. So it's just I've always the creator, the universe was always just shaking me by the shoulder, saying, "Look at all this racism, white supremacy. What are you gonna do about it?" It's my entire life has been just always in my face, directly. I like direct assaults everywhere from my time in first grade, being thrown across the room by a white teacher and laughing about it afterwards because I was just so victimized and so not aware of the kind of world I was born into, So it goes a lot, and just has to be some sort of cosmic miracle. I know I shouldn't use that word miracle, but for someone who as retarded as myself and victimized as myself to come across counter racism and to be able to use it to make their existence way more constructive and happier, if that even makes sense in this system of white supremacy. But yeah, that's one way to describe it. I have things make sense now when I understand what I've been experiencing my entire life. Folks like to share, chime in, or maybe we can get into closing comments soon.
Just my tidbit to share. Talking about how I've been heavily victimized. I didn't really grow up around a lot of white people. I mainly grew up around a lot of people who are non-white but non-black. I definitely did have white associates. So often, more often than not, I was the token black person around, around the people that I knew. I was the guy that it was okay. I made it okay to say the N word without realizing it. But looking back, when I was around the white people, they always had non-white people, and it seems like they're almost like, kind of like they like to have non-white people, but then be kind of like the leader in the group, so the one that's calling the shots, right? Almost having like the non-white people as pets, almost as like a reminder that they've got it better than the non-white people that they're around. So oftentimes when we're engaging in like insane behavior, the white people aren't really participating. They come up with the idea, but then the non-white people are carrying it out with pride and vigor, trying to make sure it happens. And I always found that to be very interesting. One of my old white associates, he was I always thought he was non-white because of his last name was Reyes. But looking back, I think he definitely identifies as white. Understanding how racism works, he definitely identifies as white. So he always hung around people that he hung around like non-white people, but they were always significantly younger than him. And I always wonder, like, why are you hanging out with these children all the time? That none of them were girls, but they're all always boys. If I can remember correctly, we may have been in 8th, 9th grade, and you're hanging out with like 3rd, 4th graders all the time because like they were his neighbors, but you're calling them to come over and play video games. I never understood that. Like looking back, I just thought, oh, makes just wants to play video games or something. But to now understanding how racism works, or just it almost seems like he'd like to have his pets around, like he liked to have these people around to remind him that he's got it so good. They always wanted to they wanted the stuff that he had, stuff like that. So hanging around white people, I never really knew that growing up, or really even understood racism. Rarely ever said racism. Nobody would ever talk to me about racism. That you always get called. That's always like pulling the race card. So those are just some of the experiences that I had. Never really understanding racism or how it worked. Yeah. So a lot of my experiences are just with other non-white people, and being victimized by the system, just kind of being around, making people realize that oh, they don't have it as bad as Black people do. That's all I got.
Wow, that reminds me of plethora of experiences, but I blabbed on perhaps long enough today. One thing I remember I wanted to maybe put out there, maybe may give folks something to share, is the clip with the I think her name is Aisha Suckerman, but I may be totally wrong. But where she's talking about how you want to see how effective you are as a so-called revolutionary, talk to your family. And that clip just resonates with me so much because introducing the code or counter racism or Dr. Francis Welsing or constructive activities like reading, studying, and paying attention to the words used by people and definitions, all those necessary constructive things when I've attempted to introduce this to my victim unit, it has been not effective at all. They like she mentioned, they seem very gone. Just you know, do not have the will to counter the system. And I think that just goes to show how this concept of family doesn't exist in regards to Black people, non-white people, because I would expect my family to be serious about wanting to solve this race problem, but it seems to only be about two of us who are in this so-called family that I was born into. So it's tragic that I could get my victim mother to buy the code book, but as for reading it, it seems like it's not happening. And I hope it's not true that once a victim goes beyond a certain age that it's just hopeless. I hope that is not a reality that is 100% accurate. But if it is, the system is that powerful, and I would not be surprised. Um, yeah, it's just it's hard for me not to have a lot of disdain towards my victim unit. Oh, and the system also does a good job of sabotaging the victim units. I think it's really ironic and tragic that I didn't grow up with a victim father. I never lost any sleep over it because I really didn't care, because despite the many terroristic things I've experienced, my mom, victim mother, she did spoil me and make me seem like I wasn't a prisoner of war. So I thought, you know, I still think I had a very so-called nice childhood. Um, but I was never I lost my oh yeah, but I was never told the truth about white supremacy. She never introduced that to me. This is not where I was going with it. I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, but the victim units. If folks wanted to share anything about their victim units and counter racism and how it just seems like it's
Yeah, I thought I found I would love to see that clip. Sorry if it's a little loud in here, but introducing the code absolutely annihilated the relationships that I have with my family in such a short amount of time. I would say maybe three to 4 months. I suspect it's mainly due to us having a woefully unconstructive relationship with each other. But trying to practice code, just trying to speak truth all the time. It's true, suspect other victims just don't want to hear about it. I think that's why growing up I've been so victimized, because my survival unit, rather than deal with the problem or at least just act like it is a real issue, we're gonna act like everything can be solved by working hard. Racism, white supremacy can be solved if you work hard, but you also need to learn how it works and actually act like it's there, it's real. But yeah, absolutely annihilated any kind of relationship that I have with my family. I'd love to see that clip though. Yeah, but after thinking about the code, I felt like I became sort of an outcast in my family. This guy's too constructive for us. Doesn't want to participate in any of that activity like that, which is fine with me. I just didn't want the young ones thinking that it's bad to not participate in things that you might find unconstructive. So that's all. Yeah.
Your mic cut out at the end.
I was just saying, my main concern was that I didn't want the young ones, the children, my siblings, my younger siblings, or attempted siblings, to believe that being that if you chose to not participate in things that were unconstructive, you were somehow on the outside, like you wouldn't receive any kind of care, I guess you could say, or attention. Hope that makes sense.
I may not be understanding the last bit, but I totally understand how the code I do know what you mean by when you say what the code annihilated your relationship with your victim parents. Yeah, a lot of Black people are just have been victimized to the point where all they know and all they want is to just remain complacent in the system because that's the most comfortable, easiest thing to do. It's easy to not change your your thoughts, speech, and behavior. It's very easy to do that. It's very easy for my victim mother and my victim aunt to just do what keeps them like ultimate victims of racism and white supremacy, which are the ones who just do not care to do absolutely anything. I think it's, for me personally, I may be talking. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I may be talking from a place I shouldn't be, but I think it's very easy to just change your thought. You know, you just think the system is incorrect. That's a simple thought. You know, and victims just don't even seem capable of doing that. Just saying racism and white supremacy is real. You know, it's so hard to get victims in my victim unit to admit the reality, and I've long given up to help them. Like recently, someone in my victim unit called me like crying and just needing help. And I know that if she had taken my advice months ago to start to get on code to understand the kind of world she's living in, she would have been able to minimize a lot of the suffering. But she asked me for help. I gave her the help that she asked for, and I also told her, suggested that she also ask the white people to help her, the white people that she's around who have way more money than I do to help her as well. Um, yeah. I was doing some thinking today of just the state of the war and how we are just utterly being obliterated, and the way we are losing the war currently, and just people who just don't have the will, awareness, or want to solve the problem, or just consider those dead on arrival victims, just the folks who must be left behind, and the fight and the war against people who are practicing white supremacy. And it's tragic that many people who will be left behind, are folks in my victim unit. I'm reminded of the Amos and Wilson clip that was played earlier. But I've definitely blabbed on a bit. Smoking damages, I'm sure, is very, very late in London. I appreciate you being here with us if you haven't fallen asleep yet over there.
No, I'm still here. I haven't fallen asleep yet at all. I definitely would say, yeah, I've definitely noticed a distance being created by a lot of family members and stuff, or when especially when I started to become a lot less confused about what racism, white supremacy is, and how it works. I did find definitely a distance with family members, and definitely I would say I've lost I've lost friends or acquaintances down through the years because of it. Oh, you go on about this racism thing too much, etc., etc., etc. And usually, I remember, I think it's Dr. Welsing that was saying on one of the Cows broadcasts where she was estimating that it's about probably close to like 90%, probably even 95% of Black people that have just no idea about how racism, white supremacy works, let alone having a definition for it, and let alone knowing what to do about it, or even attempting to want to even to want to know what to do about it. And I remember Neely Fuller Jr. as well saying that the best time sometimes to introduce other non-white people to that is when they ask questions, when they ask you questions about racism. Then sometimes that's the best way to kind of introduce some non-white people to the code. And I've found a lot of times when a lot of other non-white victims want to kind of distance themselves from you is because when you talk to them about racism, sometimes it's because it's a facing of their reality, and they really don't want to face that type of reality. We just do want to kind of pretend that everything's fine and racism's not so much of a problem. And that's why I found a lot of hesitancy around like so-called family members when it comes to facing that reality of racism, white supremacy.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'm sure there's amongst this group there are victims and their victim unit who are stuck on this religious nonsense as well. I know my I just know my victim unit, victim aunt, who's really just really incorrect monster due to the system of white supremacy. She's uses Jesus as like many victims as some sort of clutch to justify her. I don't want to get into it because it's not not worth my breath to comment on that particular victim who's a really tragic example of the system, just to say the least. And yeah, I think perhaps should we get into closing comments? Or do folks have anything they were saving to share?
Well, it's completely understandable, the disconnect between ourselves and the survival unit. Earlier someone had mentioned that the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept was the sunglasses that the critical mass of non-white people need. And I strongly suspect that, the critical mass, they know white people are the problem. They're just afraid. And that's quite understandable. Excuse me. But if you truly value your existence and your offspring's existence, like, we have to put a stop to this problem. Like, we're gonna have to look white people in their eye and confront them. There's no other way. So that's my closing comment.
I'm reminded of, thank you, Mr. Ray. Reminded of what I wanted to share regarding victim units. So I think the sabotage in my victim unit was really really tragic because my victim mother, she never had her own victim mother. My grand victim grandma passed away when my victim mom was like 4. So I never got to experience these so-called grandparents. So that's one thing I was somewhat envious of, people having grandparents, because I always saw grandparents as people
Same.
who have like, yeah, a wealth of information. They just have, stories, and I was a very interested victim. I wanted to hear stories from people, and I didn't have any grandparents to tell me anything. So I was really out in the war with very confused caretakers and attempted caretakers who never mentioned the system, but definitely celebrated gang culture, celebrated ghetto culture, and indoctrinated me into the nonsense as well. But a lot of it didn't stick, and I think uh, like dancing, I've always hated dancing, even as a young individual. I just never got the whole idea of dancing. Like, why are we dancing? What's going on? Like, sometimes you have to lay down on the floor because drive-bys. I don't think they need to be dancing about over here. And I kind of got a sneak peek, many sneak peeks into the condition of Black people through my victim unit. Seeing a bunch of older males and females just get dressed up and go to clubs when they all have, like, kids they should be taking care of is really odd. Just watching victim parents just, put on the makeup and the lashes and the stuff to go out to the club to dance is really bizarre and incorrect for a victim of racism to experience, but that's a reality that racist men and racist women have created for us. Literally, they've created this reality. So we have to end the system. We have to end these behaviors of everything that is non-constructive for Black people must be stopped. It's pretty simple, I think, but yeah. Closing comments, folks. Closing comments.
My closing comments is people need to be more constructive. And if they want to solve the problem, there's a lot of outlets and books that you can get your hands on. The ISIS Paper, the United Constitutory Independent, book, Mr. Neely Fuller. Just a load of different things that we can get to solve the problem, especially our youth. Our youth is really misguided because we are misguided. But once we come more to an understanding of the refinement that this system does, then if the problem is not solved in due time, the youth will have a bigger solution on what they can do to solve the problem.
And from my experience working with the youth, I think the youth have just have very very little hope, and the Black people that they see on planet Earth, they have no faith, hope, or um, good thoughts towards our ability to give them any advice that they would deem valuable or useful. So the disconnect with the youth, the sabotaging of our relationship with the youth, meaning older folks and younger folks, younger folks who go through the K through 12 indoctrination is really really destructive, because these youth, these Black people, these Black non-white people do not have enough people like the people in this group who are giving them the information And if they are receiving information, they just have been victimized to a degree where they don't care. So yeah, well, a lot of work to do. I think it would be a lot easier if white people were also helping, but the track record shows that it's gonna be black people who are gonna be the ones who are creating any noticeable momentum into producing a system of justice. So, you know, it's been time producing a system of justice is trending. It makes me very saddened to live in a reality where Meg Thee Stallion and Lil Wayne has been more trending than producing a correct planet that people actually want to live on. Because right now, 2021, I am a huge advocate of suicide. If you want to leave the planet, I totally support any person who wants to leave this planet dominated by white supremacy. You want to kill yourself? I support it. Get off the planet. I bid you a good farewell. That's the only thing I could think that's good in the system of white supremacy is leaving it. So, yeah, the system is incorrect. I don't know how many centuries black people need to talk about this for an effective number to be produced. But it looks like the code is pretty new and pretty new. So that's my closing comment.
I don't really have much closing comments really, apart from many non-white people that I come into contact with usually say stuff like, but racism, white supremacy, how do you even go about eliminating it? It's so hard to, what's the solution to ending this racism, white supremacy? And I always just say, well, the solution to racism, white supremacy is fighting it in everything you do in economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. You have to fight against it in every single thing you do in each one of those areas. Then then we probably will see some sort of quote unquote progress, but it's going to take a quantum number of victims of that system to have an effect. So I guess it falls to people like us who are less confused to convince the other victims who are more confused than us. Then maybe we make some headway.
But is it gonna have to be like that scene from They Live? The fight scene for him to put on the glasses. Like, why does it have to come down to that? Like, why does it always have to be some sort of struggle to get other non-white people to see the white people as a problem when they are?
Because we don't know. No, Ray, we don't know. We know, but we don't understand. Like one thing I used to say back in the day before learning about racism, whenever I was mistreated, I used to say to myself or out loud, if I was white, you wouldn't be doing this. That was it right there. That was the racism right there. But I that's just a line I just kept saying. So I knew, but I didn't understand. And we have to understand, I understand the frustration from 05. I get it. I understand that. But we have been conditioned, and it's going to take a lot of unlearning, a lot of you're fighting up against a whole lot of conditioning from TV, movies, advertisement, so many things. So and from birth and from your grandparents and great grandparents and like generational trauma that it's very hard for them to understand. It's hard for them to fight and to try to learn about racism, white supremacy. They've been taught to ignore it. They've been taught to run and fear it. It is what it is. The most that my grandmother, my attempted grandmother, told me about racism, didn't use the word, mind you, I used to go after work with white coworkers. I used to go to a bar, um, St. Patty's Day, and hang out and drink and be non-constructive. And my attempted grandmother would say, if something was to happen to you, let's say somebody slipped something in your drink and you were drugged and you pass out and someone raped you, and then the cops are called, the cops are going to ask you, what were you doing there? And I'm like, oh, grandma, you'll know what you're talking about. What do you say? Why would they ask me that? And that's as far as she went. But she was talking about how it was unsafe for me to be surrounded by so many white people and alcohol. What are you doing? But she would not break it down. So I'm just took it as she's old. She don't understand. She don't know what she's talking about. And yeah, so yeah, it is what it is. But it's a lot of conditioning from racist man and racist woman. And the fact that non-white Black people, they don't see the racism. They are getting a lot of anti-Blackness. So they see themselves as being mistreated from another Black person. They don't see the white person behind everything. They just see that Black person in front of them. You're cursing me out. You're mistreating me. You're angry. Blah 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 blah. And so, and they're not understanding words. And it's a big thing. And I get it. I get why they don't get it. I try not to get impatient. I try not to get frustrated. I try. Yeah. And as far as my attempted family, just by me removing certain words from my vocabulary has caused a rift, has caused attempted family members to stay away from me. I don't use the term microaggression like I used earlier. I don't use that term. I don't use the term privilege. I don't use the term bias. I don't use the term white fragility. And yeah, and these are all, just another word, nice fancy words of saying racism. I cut straight to the point. But they want to use these other words. I correct them, and now I'm the bad guy. It is what it is. So, good riddance. No, I mean not like that, but hey, I can't waste my time. I can't waste my time trying to explain, trying to get you to see something. Just wait for something to happen. Then what? They come to me. When something happens at work, who they come to? Asking questions. Hey, oh, when they see something, hey, this happened. What should I do about that? Oh, now you coming to me. When I try to talk to you about racism, white supremacy, whatever, I'm crazy. I don't know what I'm talking about. When something happens, and that's what I do. I don't try to force it down anybody's throat. I don't try to try to get someone to see. Nah. I'm not doing all that. They know what I'm about. They will come to me, and that's what happens most of the time. Now they still don't get it. I answer their questions and like, but what? Another 5, 6, 7, 10 months down the line, they come back to me again with a question. So, and that's what I wait for. And that's my final comment before I go on. And this doesn't end until about 11, 12 o'clock. Yeah, that's my final comment.
Thank you, Ms. B. That was really, really well put. And yeah, you're right. The conditioning is very real, and I totally understand the sabotage programming. Which is why I support victims who don't have the will to do, and who don't want to just be miserable. Just exit out of here.
I love her.
Yeah, one suggestion. Almost in Wilson, his segment and audio, I really appreciated that. I hope other folks did as well. But him, what he said, I think that to paraphrase it is just paraphrase it is something that I have in my mentality, yeah, already, and I think the code is so constructive and useful for introducing the concept to us, to me. But it's to produce justice or kill us all, kill all non-white people. So white people, you can have this galaxy universe to yourself. We're gonna dominate everything. You can do it without non-white people. And yeah, I think this is a mentality that needs to be more common. That be my final comment. Unless someone says something that.
Yeah, I'll do my closing comments. I'll be pretty quick. I'll wrap this up in 15 minutes or less. As far as my closing comments, I just want to thank everyone for a constructive business meeting on the computers and cell phones and tablets we're allowed to have. That's it.
Well said.
Oh no.
I'm on the CB radio.
Well, CB radios we're allowed to have.
Thank you, Dan, for the constant reminder.
And the truck that you're allowed to sit in right now too.
Oh my.
Yeah, total domination. Yeah, I think that's I think we get adjourned. I think
That's a wrap.
yeah, I think my slow talking can end here.